Hello, everyone. Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me as ever, it's Alasdair Gold. You well?
Yeah, better than last time, and especially the time before that. Hope you are too. Yeah, it's all a little bit better when there's kind of a win at the weekend and loads of positive stuff to talk about as well.
That was certainly more like it anyway, from an Ange Postecoglou Tottenham team. Spurs getting 3 points on the board, 3 much-needed points, certainly after the start of the season. Goals from Dominic Solanke, Brennan Johnson and James Maddison winning it for Spurs. Brentford, though, giving everyone the fright inside about 25 seconds. Brian Mbomo with a really, really good goal.
Yeah, it was. It was one of those where, of course, defensively, Porro gave too much room for the cross. Mickey van der Ven, quite rare for him, was quite far away from Mbomo as well. But it was a brilliant finish. Such a good volley. And he's kind of one of those players in Mbomo. It's a bit like, why is he, with no disrespect to Brentford, but why is he not looked at as like maybe top six clubs looking at him? He's only like 25. He looks much older, but he's only 25. And every time I've seen him play against Spurs, he's given them so many problems. Do you know why he doesn't seem to get linked to the bigger clubs?
I've no idea, because he's done it on a consistent basis now for probably the past 3 or 4 seasons when he's been at Brentford. Because I think, was he there when they had like Watkins and Benrahma up front as well? They had a really good attacking trio when they're in the Championship. Maybe someone comes in for him next summer. I don't know. But he's proved himself in the Premier League over the past few years that he can do it for a bigger club. And yeah, maybe it is a case of a move will come for him eventually.
Yeah, technique was superb for that volley. It was so good, and there was nothing Vicario could have done about that. We've got other stuff we could talk about Vicario with, but that was not one of the moments where he could have really done much, I think.
No, not at all. But I think the good thing to see after Brentford went ahead was Tottenham's response. They were absolutely fantastic, and maybe Brentford scoring did actually help Tottenham, and sent a message to them, right, we've got to be on it now. We've got to get these 3 points. And they were like a bit of a rash on Brentford. The first 15 minutes, Brentford couldn't get out their own half, really. It was just relentless pressure from Spurs, and it continued after that. I know Brentford had a couple of chances on goal, but Spurs, that was just like an Ange Postecoglou side from last season, just taking the game to Brentford, creating a number of opportunities. And on another day, Spurs could have scored a lot more than 3.
Yeah, it was almost like the early goal was like a slap in the face. It was like kind of wake up kind of thing straight away. And they did. And Postecoglou said after the game, he used the expression, it was like it never happened, the way the Spurs players dealt with it. And that's great, to be honest, because of course, there was a bit of noise around the club ahead of the game. There was disappointment with obviously the North London derby, but then also I think with the performance against Coventry on the whole until those final minutes. So to then concede in 24 seconds, that could have really destroyed some fragile confidence among those players. But to be fair also to the fans in the stadium, there was like a real roar as they went back to take the kickoff after the early goal. And I think that also helps. It just little things like that, they do kind of play a part, and Spurs just pushed on. And like you say, just kept driving forward in these waves of attack. And that is the Postecoglou way. That's what it's meant to be like. And it's meant to be like that for longer periods as well. And their pressing was brilliant. I was so impressed with their pressing on Saturday. They just barely gave Brentford a chance to breathe. Yeah, a rash is a good example. They were all over them. They were absolutely just, trying to claw Spurs away all the time. And it could have been much more. And it's no coincidence that both of actually all 3 of the goals came from Spurs dispossessing Brentford and getting the ball back and putting them away. And the difference is, I think they've done that in quite a few of the Premier League performances so far this season. They just haven't had the clinical edge, barring the game against your lot. And that's the difference. If you're going to create these tons of chances, you've just got to put at least 2 or 3 away, and that's what they did. And they're going to have to be doing that more often, because if they do, they're going to win a lot of games this season.
Yeah, really good to see Dom Solanke getting off the mark in a Tottenham shirt, because there was a lot of questions about him in the pre-match press conference 24 hours before, and the best thing Solanke can do to answer any critics is just score those goals, and he was in the right place at the right time. Big credit to James Maddison, though, who was superb from the very first minute to the last minute. Probably maybe his best game in the Tottenham shirt, or certainly up there, but all came from, I think it was a loose pass from Ethan Pinnock. Maddison read it well, burst towards the area, shot, Flecken saved, and Solanke exactly where you want your striker to be, just there to put the ball into the empty net. And he did have a couple of other chances, over the course of the 90 minutes. He might feel that he should have got maybe another goal to his name, but it's just really good to see him getting off the mark in the Spurs shirt.
Yeah, that's he hasn't played badly thus far, and he has looked kind of like a player looking for his sharpness and fitness after, we said this before, he came into North London Derby with 1 game in 7 weeks kind of to his name. But all strikers, they need the goal. Of course they do. That's what they kind of live and breathe, and that's what gives them their confidence. And yeah, there was loads of bits of that goal I liked Kulusevski pressing to force the loose pass, Maddison intercepting it really well, driving forward and having the shot. And then I know it's a simple thing and it can look like a very simple goal, which ultimately it ended up being. But the difference for Spurs of having a natural striker in there is that he's going to take up those positions of anticipation, knowing that the ball might drop his way. And those who aren't natural strikers don't always get ready in those positions. So it ended up, being a nice, simple finish for him. And yeah, it's great to see him get off the mark. And just his whole, as we've said before, his whole kind of focal point play is really good. I still wouldn't actually say he got loads of service, funnily enough. I didn't think he got the ball loads on Saturday. But whenever he did, he holds it up well. He's got a little bit of, and I hate going back to talk about other players, but there is an element of the Kane ability to hold up the ball really well and use his dribbling ability as well to create space for him. And then I think we're going to see him spreading the play a lot more like Kane used to do as well, whipping it out to the wings and the fullbacks. And he played well. He had another decent chance was when Bentancur ran into the box and kind of tumbled over, and he had a shot. And actually, the keeper Flecken made a really good save from that. There were a couple of Flecken saves that, in the moment, I thought were quite routine, and when I watched them back, they're actually really good reaction saves. And that was one of them. And I think he could have done with coming off around the hour mark. He could have done with Spurs burying the game by that point. That last probably, I think he came off in the end about the 88th minute, something like that. It was probably another 28 minutes he potentially didn't need. He looked like he'd really run out of gas by that point, because he's starting 3 in 6 days, hadn't he? He and Bentancur. But it's all building minutes into his legs, getting him sharper. He may even play against Karabag this week as well to keep topping up those. It's almost like he's having a pre-season of sorts after missing this period after joining. But no, really pleased for Solanke and with Solanke, and I think he knits everything together up front really well. And it's only just the beginning. He's only just getting used to these players he's playing alongside, getting used to their runs, getting used to how they'll put the ball into the 6-yard box. I still predict, and this could come back to absolutely haunt me as the season goes on, but I think he'll score more goals this season than he did last. That's my...
For me, he needs to start on Thursday. I know some might see the fixtures, right, so the Karabag will make a lot of changes. I think you just got to go strong, maybe make a couple of alterations here and there, certainly not to the levels like it was at Coventry last Wednesday night when you're making 8 changes in all. And let's be honest, Spurs don't have another out-and-out striker at the moment, so I think you have to start him. And then if you can go a few goals ahead, then bring him off, give him a better...
He could even do one half, and maybe Will Lancashire comes on for the second half or something like that.
Yeah, you just got to make sure you get those points in the bag and then bring him off at a decent position in the game, just to give him a bit of a breather ahead of the Manchester United fixture this weekend at Old Trafford. As good as Solanke was, we'll talk about James Maddison now, who was superb. A really, really good performance. And you just got to probably question, where on earth has this James Maddison been in recent months? Because first, probably 3 months in the Tottenham shirt prior to that injury he got against Chelsea, unplayable at times. After that, really struggled to have a big say on the games. Shown glimpses of his quality so far this season, but in terms of a 90-minute performance, that was it from James Maddison. That was superb.
Yeah. Do you know who the person that was the most upset after his performance was?
His mum, wasn't it? Because
it was his mum.
Yeah, I'd seen him mention that because he got booked and he's in his mum's fantasy team, and apparently you lose points for a yellow card.
You get a -1, I think. Yeah. She messaged him straight afterwards and said, "Why did you have to take your shirt off and get the booking? You lost me a point in my fantasy football team." I love that. And even he admitted, he's like, "I don't know why I took my top off. I think it's just in the moment, the euphoria and all of that." Because it technically lobbed his Spurs shirt behind him, kind of thing, and he then went and made a very nice kind of gesture with it and showed the badge to the fans and all that. But I thought he was excellent. It was a really insightful interview. It's a very good one. On there's like a version that's on Spurs Play, but it's actually an even longer one that's within their review show they do. And he speaks really kind of insightfully about his performances, and he kind of feels like a game like today, maybe it's coming to people's attention because he's been involved in the end part of it with a goal or assist or whatever. He says, but actually he feels like this season he's been really involved in the build-up play a lot more. And he kind of was talking about how the fact that when Decky plays as the other midfielder, Decky does a lot of what James Maddison would normally do further up the pitch. So Maddison has to adjust slightly and play deeper. And he feels like he's actually had quite a big impact there, and he enjoys playing there. And I think that's true to a degree. I do feel like energy-wise, he was another level on Saturday than what we've seen, and his pressing was incredible. And the biggest thing for me about Maddison, and this probably goes to Bentancur as well, is that Brentford had this very clear, and they play this way often. It's this like man marking around the pitch. Every one of the 11, no, apart from the goalkeeper, every one of the 10 outfield players is closely, almost hugging their opposite number, or their counterpart on the pitch. And the only way around that is to have players who are very clever on the ball, who can just drop a shoulder, turn away, twist, and get. And as soon as they do that, and in his own words, Maddison said this: if you can turn and beat your man in a tight situation, suddenly you've got a big channel of space because the other players can't leave their man to come and get you. And if they do, they're leaving the space for the other player to pass to. And I felt he and Bentancur, every time they got the ball, would just spin and turn so well. And that created these waves of attacks that Brentford couldn't really do much about. Even Thomas Frank, I really like Thomas Frank. He's a really fascinating person in press conferences to listen to. And I like the way that he kind of tactically looks at the game as well. And even he admitted in his press conference afterwards, he's like, first half hour, fair play especially, Spurs were just like unplayable kind of thing. They were very, very good. And they just responded to the goal really well. And I think Maddison was a big part of that. I like the fact that Maddison's got a lot to prove this season. I think it's going to weigh in Spurs' favour. I think the England snub, I think just his own form last season, I think the question marks over whether once he has an injury, can he really come back to the full kind of ability that he's got in a season. This was something that was levelled him at Leicester as well. And just in general, really, whether he can be a consistent playmaker that takes a grip on a game, and this is exactly where he did it. But you need him now to go to Old Trafford next weekend and do the same thing, and it needs to be a continuous thing. But I'd probably agree with you. I think that was the best performance I've seen him putting in a Spurs shirt, and he's had some good ones. North London derby away last season, Bournemouth I vaguely remember him being really good at last season as well. But this one, he's got the ability to run the game and grab it by the scruff of the neck, and that's exactly what he did.
I was just going to say, like you mentioned, you've done it against Brentford, now got to do it against Manchester United next Sunday. Make sure it's not a flash in the pan, because Spurs, it's no coincidence that Spurs were fantastic because Maddison was so influential on the game. And I picked up on that as well, just the amount of times he'd roll his opponent on the halfway line, and then he's just moving, and really, really good finish from him. Second half,
Yeah, I haven't even mentioned that. It was a lovely finish, wasn't it? Yeah.
Some move as well. Yves Bissouma, who came on as a sub, really, really good tackle on the edge of the box. Good
On a
ball
yellow
from,
card as well.
yeah.
It had
Good
to be
ball.
perfect.
Yeah, good ball from Romero as well to unleash Son, and then Son's played it in. Maddison, who's just lifted it over nicely over Flecking, and I think he said in his Spurs play interview, he was like begging for the ball to drop. So he said that he thought he'd put too much on it initially.
It's floating a bit, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that'll just do his confidence the world of good. And I imagine another week or so, it'll be Lee Carsley will be naming his England squad for the qualifiers in October. So a strong showing in midweek if he starts against Karabag, a good performance at Manchester United, then maybe he does put himself in a position for an England recall. But there are an awful lot of players in his position in the pitch for England, which makes it really difficult. But all he can do is just, concentrate on your football for Spurs. And if you do that, then the England recognition might come with it.
Yeah, and maybe it's a good, I know it's awful to say, but maybe for Spurs it's a good thing for him not to get in. Kind of keep this hunger going. I remember, was it Eric Dyer who'd had a really good run of form for Spurs and had been out of the England squad, got himself back in the England squad, and it was just all kind of fell apart after that. And it was a bit like, I think he would probably rather he hadn't gone in it. But Maddison's been superb. I hadn't even spoken about the finish was beautiful. The second goal as well was heavily involved in that as well when winning the ball back. And also on that final goal, Romero, when you watch Romero, he does everything that Postecoglou wants from his players in that moment. The Bissouma challenge is brilliant. It's had to be perfect. It's fantastic. But Romero sprints forward ahead of Sarr as if to say, I'm taking this. And he just plays this perfect pass into Son's path. And Son's ball as well was perfect into Maddison's. But I love that from Romero. The centre back saying, no, that's mine. I know what we can do with this. And that's where Romero gets so many kind of pre-assists, doesn't he? Where he plays those forward driving passes from the kind of midway in the Spurs half. And I remember doing a piece last season where the Premier League stats, that they had all these, I think it was an XG one as well, where all the different positions on the pitch and who were leading in the Premier League and who played key passes from these certain areas. And Romero in that midway in the second half was miles ahead of everyone in the Premier League. And he does on that right-hand side of the centre, just picks these brilliant through balls. And that's what you need to do in the Postecoglou system. You need to break the lines. And he's a really good player to do that.
Tottenham's second goal then came through Brennan Johnson, who on Wednesday night scored that crucial goal at Coventry City to put Spurs through to the fourth round of the Carabao Cup. Really nice to see him on the score sheet again, because he's coming for an awful lot of criticism recently. And again, that's just the best way to silence any critics. He's just making a mark on the game and scoring. And really, really well taken goal from Johnson. Good move again. Sonny playing it in, but he did have a couple of other opportunities throughout the game to add to his tally. One which sticks out in my mind was the start of the second half, I think it was, where he's played in down the right and then fired it across goal. But it was one of these, looking at it, he needs to probably put your laces through it, finding the bottom corner. It's like he passed it and then the bend on it is just always taking it away, and Solanke wasn't coming in at the far post to convert. So, but on the whole, another good showing from Brennan Johnson. It sounds like the crowd were right behind him.
Yeah, it was lovely. It was. This match was a bit of a narrative buster, wasn't it? We got Solanke's first goal after all the kind of very early kind of kind of judgments on him, and with Brennan Johnson, yeah, he's had after such a tough little kind of moment or spell to deal with, he's had a brilliant week, as Postecoglou said. He's won one game with a last gasp finish, which, in Postecoglou's words, other people would have needed change. His critics would have needed a change of pants to be able to do, or not done it even at all. And there he was on Saturday, popping up with it's a lovely finish. If you can get it inside the corner of the net, that's that's the ideal place. No keeper's ever going to get that in a million years. And yeah, he did have some other chances. There was the one where Sonny ran through and he didn't, the angle for Sonny suddenly closed with the defender and Johnson was calling for it, played it across to him, and he kind of put that one across the face of goal as well. It was a slightly overhit pass from Son. I'd give him that, Johnson. But yeah, he probably could have had a couple on the day. But yeah, the crowd were amazing from the first kind of moments just before kickoff when they Paul Coyte read out the teams. When he got to Brennan Johnson's name, just this huge cheer around the stadium, and he just, that's where I do feel we see the disparity between social media and the actual like fans in the stadium and things like that, because they were fully behind him and unsurprisingly supporting him worked. He scored a beautiful goal, and and then after he'd scored the goal, they were all singing "There's only one Brennan Johnson," which was lovely, and he was smiling, enjoying it. Maddison and Solanke were the first two over to him when he scored, and they were like really kind of, you could see they were just saying like, enjoy this, this is what it's actually all about. And then when he came off in the second half, they sang his name again. It was just, that's when football can be just great. And fans, I think we kind of always felt this ahead of the game. The fans inside that stadium were always going to play their part. That's it is a different kind of, I hate, we've always got to make clear when people abuse players, it's always a nasty minority. That's all it is. People that hide behind anonymity and look to do these things. The fans inside the stadium, they're the ones that, and the away games as well, when they travel all over the place, that they're not those kind of people, and they're there to support the players. That's the whole point of it. Criticism's fine. Criticism's a part of the game as long as it's constructive, and players will know when they're a bit out of form. But as Postecoglou said, Johnson just works so hard. He's one of the hardest workers on the training pitches. And these are the rewards. And yeah, it was great for him. And you could see how delighted the players were for him. And Maddison was kind of saying after the game that even if he hadn't scored, he'd worked so hard, made some incredible runs that maybe weren't picked out sometimes. And he said in his own words, but sometimes if it just shuts a few people up when you stick one in the back of the net. So I'm really happy. And that was Maddison. And yeah, great day for Brennan Johnson.
Was he getting a bit of stick from Brentford fans? Just going on the way he celebrated, putting his finger to his lips, because it's funny how football works out. He could have quite easily been playing against Tottenham if he'd joined Brentford when he was at Nottingham Forest, because at that time Brentford went with a bid they thought was probably acceptable. Forest wanted more money, and then he ended up going to Spurs.
Yeah, I presume so. Yeah, it did seem a little bit, because if you just saw the photo in isolation, you might think, oh, he was saying it's the Spurs fans or what you got before, but it was very much, he was in that corner, and it was aimed towards the Brentford fans. So yeah, we presume they were giving him a bit of stick during the game about something earlier on. And yeah, it made for a very a striking image, let's put it that way.
Before we discuss a bit more of Tottenham's brilliant 3-1 win over Brentford, Ali's going to take it away with the benefits of using our sponsor, NordVPN.
Absolutely, yes. You all know, because I say it every single week, about how much I've used NordVPN over the years, and it's always nice to be able to kind of promote something that you actually use and has been a major benefit to you over the years as well. And that's exactly what it has, because it's something that I've used at home and abroad, actually, mainly abroad when I've been heading off to mostly work rather than holidays. We don't all get holidays all the time. And yeah, Nord allows you to watch your favorite TV shows and things like that when you're abroad, because you can set your device to thinking it's back in the UK, whether that's a tablet, whether that's your phone, whether it's a laptop, whatever you want it to be, really. But also it can be very beneficial if you're in the UK and you want to switch your phone to thinking it's anywhere else in the world, or your device to thinking it's elsewhere in Europe, America, Africa, Asia, wherever you want to be, or Australia, and many other continents in the world, even if you were at the North Pole. And you can set it to thinking it's somewhere else, and you can access things like maybe flight bookings or hotel bookings that maybe if you're doing them from the destination country may be better for you. And there's also a security element as well, where if you're using slightly ropey public Wi-Fi, which could allow people to get into your devices, Nord goes some way to stopping them getting things off of it as well. And as I'll always say, NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world, and that means no buffering or lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. And on top of all of that, we've got a great discount we can get our listeners off your NordVPN plan. You can go to nordvpn.com/Gold Guest, and our link gives you 4 extra months off the 2-year plan. On the 2-year plan, technically. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the podcast episode description box in case you just missed it.
Let's talk about Rodrigo Bentancur now, because it's been a bit of a busy week for him in terms of starting games. Started the North London derby, then against Coventry, in the team again against Brentford with Ibisuma, who just returned from injury on the bench to begin with. Bentancur, I mean, we've probably been waiting for this performance for so long. So it's been an absolute wretched 18 months or so for the player, coming back from the ACL injury at Leicester, then the injury against Aston Villa last November. Fantastic performance, and I think he probably would have liked to have stayed on the pitch much longer than an hour, but what he showed in those 60 minutes were fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we always said, didn't we, in the pods last season, that the view around the medical staff, sports science staff, was that we wouldn't see him get back to his level probably until this season. That's ACLs. That's what they do. They absolutely do stuff you for a long period. It takes so long to get back from them. And yeah, he started 3 games in a week, played 95 minutes against Coventry. He had every right to look a bit knackered on Saturday, but he didn't. He was everywhere. He was covering, tracking back, involved in all of the nice little bits of play. And like I say, really kind of twisting and turning. He made 3 interceptions, 2 tackles. And yeah, he absolutely just beat the press, really, which was one of the key things. I think it was a game that really suited him. I think the way Brentford played really allowed him to flourish, which was great. And yeah, we kind of await this potential ban now, and what happens with his charge with the FA. Don't have a timeline as of yet. We're kind of looking back, and I saw that. I know it's totally different circumstances and a different thing. Delhi's was charged in February and not given a punishment until June. But that was during the COVID times, so there would have been like a break as well, naturally, and things. So I would hope it's not going to take that long, and maybe it'll be a far sooner that we find out. And obviously, we spoke before about it being potentially 6 to 12 games. I mean, he'll be able to play European games. You would imagine it would be a domestic ban, so at least he can keep himself ticking over, and you've got an experienced player in the centre of the park for those European group stage matches. But Spurs will miss him because he's been very good. And I mean, a question for you, bearing in mind also how he played at Old Trafford last year, if he's available at the weekend, would you start him over Bissouma?
It's a tough one. So I was just thinking, like, first of all, midweek, do you start him? Because Pat Matasar needs to start a game. Bissouma needs to start a game. He's been missing for the past couple. So it's one you've just got to weigh up. On the performance he delivered against Brentford, be inclined to say, yeah, it's time, because at Old Trafford last January, he were fantastic and deservedly got a goal to his name. But this is the good thing when you've got a number of quality midfielders available to you. You can pick and choose and, rest players when you want. I thought Bentancur was brilliant against Brentford. I think one particular moment that stood out, fantastic slide tackle just in front of, I think it was the dugouts, came away with the ball, ran with it, and I think that ended up with Solanke having a bit of a chance at the near post that Brentford blocks, and then again a really good run into the box at the second half, another Solanke attempt on goal. So yeah, I mean, Bentancur for me is Tottenham's best player, best midfielder anyway, when he's playing like that. And when he's playing like that, you've got to keep him in the team.
Yeah, I think I'd probably give Bissouma a half or 60 minutes on Thursday night, I think, to get his kind of match fitness back up again. And also because Bentancur has played three in a row. Again, it is very much on if we hear anything from the FA or the club hear anything from the FA, because if that's in the pipeline, then yeah, he has to start against on Thursday, because he's not going to be playing Premier League games if that's the way the decision goes. Yeah, I love seeing him playing like that. You could see he's got confidence in his own body again, and he's overcome a lot of the problems he was having, because it wasn't even just the ACL, it was the ankle, really bad ankle injury as well. Yeah, and he works really well with Maddison as a combo. I always think he works really well with Kulusevski as well. Their kind of background that they've had together at Juventus as well. What did you make of Kulusevski on the day in the 3?
I thought it was fantastic. Again, just running things, getting on the ball, trying to make things happen. Just a constant threat, and it has been Spurs' best player this season. And again, I think he showed that. We've not really seen him on the right wing much. I think he got the final 20 minutes or so back out there. And again, it's one of these, just good to have the options, being able to play him out wide if you need to, but he's far more influential in those central areas. Yeah, he's started this season really, really strong, and fingers crossed he carries on this rich vein of form, and maybe even gets better.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what Postecoglou said in the I think it was the Friday presser. He said that there's such a huge upside to him in that position, and how he's just going to get better and better in it. And it's a bit like, I'm sure for Decky, it's a bit like, I mean, he was telling us, wasn't he, 2 years ago? It's like, that's my position. That's where I should be playing. That's what I want to play. And we're finally only getting to see it. And it's just bringing out so many of his qualities. He's such a driving, strong player. And he's so difficult to get the ball off of when he's in full flight, and just some of the times when he's got this brilliant ability, and this is obviously when he's a winger as well, is getting to a touchline, whether it's the touchline or whether it's kind of alongside the goal, of just, you feel like he's about to run the ball out of play, and he seems to get along the line and beat his man, and he just always creates stuff. And yeah, he's having a great vein of form. I think you wrote in a piece recently, he's undroppable at the moment. I don't think you take him out of your team, because he's that good, and I think he gives the opposition so many problems. And he also has the most incredible work rate. I mean, there was a run late on yesterday, if I remember, he was like sprinting down the pitch, and you kind of think, where do you get that energy from? He's doing really well. I like that. I like the balance of Maddison on one side and Kulusevski on the other, whether it is with Bentancur or Bissouma. It's not going to work in every game, but I do feel like it gives Spurs such a platform to get forward, and it helps them create chances. Although it's quite interesting. Did you see the possession stats Saturday?
I didn't. What were they?
Spurs had less of the possession, 48%. First time this season that they've had less of the possession. And
there's only one stat that matters, and that's the scoreline.
That's it. That is exactly it. And they dominate the game still. It's really weird, isn't it? It's like the possession. It's really obvious, and it's something we speak about all the time. It's possession is great as long as you're doing something with the ball and not just knocking it around trying to hope that there's an opening. And that was the key. So while Brentford may have had more of the ball than Spurs, they weren't doing enough with it. And every time Spurs had the ball, they were more efficient with it. There was a really interesting little thing that came up on, I think I took a photo of it. It was doing the rounds. I think Sky showed it. I think this was before the Brentford game. And it was where Tottenham are ranking this season in various things. They had average possession, 63.2% in each game. That was top in the Premier League. Crosses into the box, 126, top in the Premier League. Passes into the penalty area, 71, top in the Premier League. Shots on target, 33, top in the Premier League. And touches in the final third, 1,267, top in the Premier League as well. It's mad, isn't it? There's all these attacking stats that are brilliant, yet they just haven't put that ball into the net enough times. And that was, like I said, that was before. I'd imagine now after Brentford, everything barring the possession will have jumped up even more, and they'd probably still be top on them. And it just, it's the perfect example of how it's so important that it's such an obvious thing. I think even Jose Mourinho was saying, wasn't he, after the derby in Turkey? It's like, there's only one thing that's important: is you put the ball in the net. There's nothing else really matters at the end of it. And if Spurs can kind of marry this beautiful style of play that they get when they're playing the real true Postecoglou way with the ball going into that net, as I said earlier, they're going to tonk a few teams this season. I think they're going to get far, far more wins than they certainly did last season. Another quick thing, did you notice the fullbacks weren't as inverted?
Yeah, I noted with Destiny Doggy,
Especially,
mainly just down the left wing. And I thought, again, he was really, really good player on the day, heavily involved, just getting into those attacking areas where you want. And no, that's a good sign as well. It's just like there's not just one way of playing, and will invert and stay in the middle and then pass it. At least you've seen them going down the wings and having that impact. I thought Doggy was very good on the day.
But Ange doesn't change his tactics, though, does he?
Well, apparently not. But Saturday obviously suggests otherwise.
Yeah, he does. This is kind of real fallacy, isn't it, about him, that people mistake the fact that he's only got one philosophy of playing with thinking that's only one tactic of playing, and that's not the case. We've seen it. I mean, we saw it at Man City last season. It was last season, wasn't it? No, it wasn't at Man City. It was the home game, wasn't it? It was the one where everyone was like wanting them to lose, and and he really like had Pat Matasar as like a false nine. It was like really tactically excellent, and I felt that yesterday. I think he kind of clearly said to Destiny, on Saturday, he said to Destiny Dog, he's like, you're not going to be as needed infield because we're going to have Maddison and Son there, and Son's going to come inside a fair bit as well. And it worked perfectly. And it just shows that he's not wed to this exact way of the fullbacks being inverted all the time. If he can, then, they're another kind of weapon to use up there. But he's certainly, in the games that require it, then they're going to do different things. And and tactically, I thought he got it spot on. Like I said, beating the press, the way they dealt with it was absolutely perfect. And Maddison made a kind of alluded to that in his interview. He said, everything you see when we're playing well and everything, that's because of the structure that the gaffer puts into the team. And then they're all on board, and especially after a weekend like that, a really positive one. And, they go there on Thursday, they can beat Karabag, and despite whatever team they might end up putting out, 3 wins in a row, and it's like everything suddenly changes. It's the way football works, isn't it?
It is, yeah. One player who was in the headlines on Saturday, perhaps for the wrong reasons, Guglielmo Vicario. I think we're probably just all wishing just him to have a game where there's like no mistakes or anything, because he's just constantly in the headlines at the moment. I mean, he was against Arsenal, a lot questioning his role in the goal. And this is a thing now. Teams are just going to be targeting him. And you're certainly not helping yourself at times where you maybe take an extra touch in the penalty area and you've got Fabio Carvalho on your heels, almost getting the ball off you, and then you're presenting it to Brian Mbomo, who probably should have scored in that position. Good save from Vicario, but second half, I've no idea how he got away with it, handling the ball outside his area. I think everyone's saying it's he didn't deny a goal-scoring opportunity because he was moving away from the goal and there was a couple of Spurs players behind him, but that's as blatant a handball as you're going to see outside your area. And I mean, it wasn't just like on the line, it was like a good yard outside the area as well. And quite a lot of people probably think any handball from a goalkeeper outside is an automatic red card, but he wasn't denying a goal-scoring opportunity. The one gripe I'd have if I was a Brentford fan, it's like, well, there's VAR there. You've seen such a blatant handball. You've surely got to go back and intervene at this moment because it's blatant.
Yeah, it was Vicario. It was mad because he made 2 really good saves during the game.
Yeah.
Like who had the header?
Sharda.
That's it, Sharda.
Yeah.
Yes, of course it was a sub came on. Yeah, and that was a brilliant save. The way he got across, and it was a real fantastic one. And the other one kind of making up for his own mistake as well with his feet. I just very quickly want to say the positives. I actually thought his use of the ball with his feet was brilliant, other than that one moment, because a lot of that beating the press relied on him picking out people with pinpoint passes. We saw on Wednesday night what a dodgy pass can do. Forster did to Pierre-Emile early on in the game. Whereas Vicario, I felt every time he was picking his man out, like a doggy, he found so many times with a little lofted ball. It was perfect. He was finding Maddison and Bentancur, and that was a really strong part of his game that actually helped Spurs win the game. But yes, that flappy moment was just mad. He juggled it. He like touched it 3 times, and at the final one, he was like, "No, don't touch it again! Don't touch it again!" he like swatted it away. And I absolutely have 100% understanding of frustration that Thomas Frank, Aya as well. They both got yellow cards, and I'd love in those moments for the referee to think, just have a bit of common sense to think, look, I know you're going to be heightened sense of agitation because of what's just happened. We've probably messed up here, judging by the reaction of everyone around us, kind of thing. And so we're probably not going to book you. We're just going to say, can you just calm down. I thought that was really harsh that they both got yellow cards, and yeah, how that wasn't spotted by any of the officials. But ultimately, that is as ridiculous as it was, and as absolutely a handball as it was outside the box. That's as far as it should have gone. That's it. Because, I mean, I was typing up my press conference transcript after the game, and there was a certain former Spurs player in the media room, who I won't name, who was saying that they felt it was a red card, and I kind of had to interject. It was one of those where you're listening, you're like, no, and you kind of have to interject, and we'd kind of got word as well from, I think it was PGMOL or part of the process anyway, that VAR is not going to intervene in that moment because he's not preventing a goal scoring opportunity. He's way off to the left. There's Spurs players right behind him. I think he had a couple of defenders right behind him. He isn't. It would never have been a red card. Even Thomas Frank, to be fair, straight away after the game said no. He said yes, it was. It should have been seen, but it was just a mistake. It would have only been a free kick, and he actually said that. I can't remember what it was now. Like the small percentage chance of then scoring from the free kick. So he's not. He said that did not cost us the game, like a handball outside the box. He was very good on that. And Postecoglou was a little bit said the same thing in a slightly different way, but yeah, he. It wasn't. It's not where VAR is going to intervene. It didn't change the flow of the game. I mean, who knows? Yes, they could have scored from the free kick. We don't really know in that respect, but it isn't a high. It's not like they would have got a penalty. They wouldn't have got a red card. But yeah, a crazy moment from Vicario, and he just. I think he's in this space now where he kind of feels like, I've got to come out for crosses. And to be fair, this is what we've been calling for as well. He's got to be more dominant for crosses. But then it is going to create the odd flappy moment like that. And we see all goalkeepers do it. But my goodness, yes, I don't know how that didn't get spotted.
Yeah, he's going to be in the spotlight on Sunday at Old Trafford as well, just because of the past few performances. So it's just one of these where just a normal performance, no issues whatsoever, and then we can just move on from it. We'll talk about now what Ange told his players after the game, because listening back to his interview with Spurs player, he was saying like really happy with the performance, very, very, very happy about getting the win. But I think one of the first things he told his Tottenham players in the changing room after the game was, that's exactly the team we want to be. And it was just a typical Ange Postecoglou performance, one that we saw a number of times last season, and unfortunately we've not really seen him over a 90-minute period in recent months. But that was just Spurs back at the best under Ange.
Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be a scary moment. You know, the way they play is going to naturally allow the odd break with a good ball over the top, but that's what Van der Ven's there for. That's what the other defenders are there to kind of mop up behind. But yeah, that's exactly it. His exact words were, that's exactly who we want to be. And this is why I can understand why people can get impatient, because quite frankly, Spurs have been starved of success for so long. I get it. And I get it that the club have made loads of mistakes over the years, and managers they've appointed, the decisions they've made, sometimes the players they go for and things like that. But I kind of feel like the whole Postecoglou rebuild, it's building towards creating a team that does things like that has matches like that. It's exactly that is Saturday brought the kind of football we were all craving for in recent years, and the lean years, and when we were kind of just hoping for any breakaway goal that looked quite nice, there was an irony that the last goal was a breakaway goal as well on the counter. But yeah, I just feel like the sense of frustration over the years is just kind of has not allowed enough patience for what was always going to be a rebuild. And yeah, I get it. There's been so many rebuilds over the years because Spurs keep kind of messing it up, ripping it up, starting again. I put it to Postecoglou on Friday. I said, I'm sure you're aware, but you're the first manager to last a full season at Spurs in half a decade. And he kind of quipped, yeah, they gave me a cake actually. and then because I just wanted to know, really, the question was more about the fact that, like, is it harder to do a rebuild in a club that's just chopped and changed so much that there's kind of more to do? And he kind of was more like, he said, well, not so much for me because I have my very set way of doing things. It's the same thing I've done at every club I've gone into. Every club he's gone into, there's been a big rebuild. Often there's question marks after the first season. Sometimes we've gone into somewhere like Celtic, and I think he said he got question marks after 2 games, and they won the double in the first season. But other clubs like Yokohama, they were like flirting with relegation, weren't they? He had a really tough first season, but it just takes a little while. If you're completely changing the ethos of a club back to what it should be, to be fair, and what it should have been in the first place, it takes a bit of time, and on top of that he likes to work with these younger players as well. So younger players can be a little bit more inconsistent, but it just Saturday gives you glimpses of the team that they're going to be, as long as Spurs mainly give him the time to do it, because Spurs are, how do I put this? They're a club that, with a motto that is to dare is to do, they're not often the bravest when it comes to their managers. There's a kind of a real culture of, oh, it's not our fault, it's their fault, quick, get rid of them. And then they move on to the next one. And then lo and behold, shock horror, they need time, but they don't get it. And then they do the whole process over and over and over again. They're a project club that needs a project manager. And that's exactly what Postecoglou is, but a project manager who knows how to win. They've kind of found a nice happy medium in that. They've just got to give him time. Whereas in the past, they've gone for win now managers and shoved them into the kind of project, what do you call it, like a square peg into a round hole kind of thing. It doesn't quite work. Whereas Postecoglou is a bit of a happy medium in that respect. And hey, if we get more games like we did on Saturday, they've got to be more consistent. They've got to find that against all the top teams as well, on a consistent basis. That's obviously a record that's got to improve. But yeah, that was a good start this season to kind of getting the ball rolling.
Yeah, so the games are coming thick and fast now for Tottenham, with the Europa League commencing on Thursday. First up, Karabag at home. I mean, you've done the piece today on the fact that in Europe, the rules are slightly different in terms of your matchday squad. You're going to have 12 substitutes, no Richarlison, no Wilson Odebear, Jed Spence not in the squad, Christian Romero suspended, so Spurs are going to have to deal without some players. It does give an opportunity though to those on the fringes of the first team to come into the 11, and those academy players as well to take a place in the matchday squad. I think you've said there's maybe 5 places available
Potentially.
So who are your 5 then coming in?
Well, I was just going to give you a little bit of breaking news about your club. As we were doing, I don't know if you noticed, the Friedkin Group have just reached total agreement to buy Everton. There you go.
Good news.
Yes, purchasing all of Mashiri's shares and investing to reduce the club debt. There you go. I know this is a Tottenham podcast, but I thought I'd bring you some happy news just as you were going, to brighten your mood. On Spurs. Yeah, I mean, the way it is, I was trying to work it out. Obviously, they named a 23-man squad for the Europa League. That's all they could, because they had to leave these 2 spots open because of the lack of senior club trained players, which we've definitely spoken about far too much. And they've got Odebear and Richarlison out. They've got Romero suspended. They've got Jed Spence obviously unavailable for the squad because he wasn't picked in it. I mean, the question to you, he's not going to name all 4 subs, is he? All 4 goalkeepers, is he, on the day? You've got to have 3 goalkeepers on the bench. That would be utterly ridiculous, wouldn't it?
You never know. There might be a situation where you need them all at some point.
Block that goal.
I don't know. I don't think there's any need to. I personally would rather give one of the young lads go on the bench just for that experience as well, because fingers crossed in the future they are going to be playing a part in the Tottenham first team. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see until Thursday, but I don't see any point in naming every goalkeeper available on the bench.
At the most, if you have to put two on there, put two on there. But even that's overkill. So you're looking at their 19 kind of senior players to fit onto a 23-player matchday squad, and then lose another goalkeeper, and you're looking at potentially 5 spots there, I think, for young players. So we know Mikey Moore will take one of them. These are the players from the B list. Mikey Moore, I wouldn't even be shocked if he starts, because why not? It's like the perfect game to do it. It's a low-risk game, first of 8 group stage matches, with no disrespect to Karabag, but you're playing a team from the Azerbaijani League, and there is no, like I said, there's no kind of risk to it. And even if the worst happened, they drew or lost, there's so much left in the competition to go on and turn that around. And you could technically rest, let's say, Son and Johnson, and bring in, because bear in mind, they are your only 2 senior fit wingers, if we're not considering Decky to be one now, or at this moment. So you probably do bring in Werner and Moore. And I think that would be so exciting. Obviously, Werner's not had the greatest of weeks or so, but certainly for Mikey Moore, I think would really excite the crowd as well. I think why not give him a chance? Came on against Brentford for the last couple of minutes, his 3rd Premier League appearance, I think that is now, isn't it? So I mean, I would definitely start him myself, but it's down to Postecoglou, of course. He's the boss. Will Lancashire, you'd imagine he'll take one of the spots as well. He's back now from his hamstring injury, played 45 minutes on Friday night in the under-21s defeat to Fulham. You would think he'll be on there. And as we said earlier, you probably give Solanke a start again, just to kind of keep tuning up his match fitness, but maybe only give him 45 minutes or 60, and then Lancashire can come on for the remainder of that. And I think that would work quite nicely. It might, with no Romero, you probably need another centre back, like a young centre back. If you're going to have 5 young players on there, I hope it would be Alfie Dorrington, although it might have come a little bit early. We'll see. He's only just returned himself he's been out for a long time with hamstring surgery. He had, I think it was either April or May he had that. He came back. The under-21s played Valencia in a Premier League International Cup on Tuesday night. He played an hour in that. He then wasn't used on Friday night, presumably because they didn't want to throw him in too quickly straight after that. So whether he might be on the bench for the potential of maybe 10, 15 minutes at the end, perhaps. But he'd definitely be one kind of in consideration. Then you've got Tyrese Hall. Tyrese Hall was part of the summer kind of plans. His game time went down as the pre-season wore on, but he's been back and heavily involved with the under-21, so he could be. There's a few midfielders actually. I mean, Callum Olasese has done really well for the under-21s. He's only 17 years old, but he actually captained them the other day against Valencia. He started the season really well. Rio Kieran-Martin, he went out to Melbourne with the team. He played a couple of minutes towards the end in the Newcastle game out there as well. So I would imagine the midfielders, if maybe one of those 3 is involved, it's probably more of a watching brief, because you've got so many midfielders at Spurs, you might not need them. And because you've got 12 subs, but you can only make 5 substitutions at this point. I think you can make 6 in the knockout stages, 1 extra in extra time, I think, if that were to be placed. Fullbacks is probably the area that they're going to need covering, especially with Jed Spence not available. You're looking at you've got Max Robson as a potential there. He played one of the games in pre-season, the second half, I remember that. Dante Casanova can play as a fullback as well, or a centre-back. Leo Black, he was on the Melbourne trip as well in May, so he's a potential one. Could be any of those 3. And then you've got there's various other players that could potentially be involved. Maxwell McKnight, Mason King, both done well as fullbacks. You've got a few wingers. Damola Ajayi, I really like him every time I see him play. He's very direct, very exciting young winger. I'm going to get his name wrong here. Yusuf Akram Rich and Oliver Iro, also very kind of tricky wingers that could come in. Other strikers, you've got Jaden Williams has been filling in, coming into the team with Will Lancashire not being available. George Feeney, the under-16-year-old striker, I don't think he would be available. He's been doing very well for the under-18s, but because he's only been at the club for a couple of months, he won't be on that B list because I think
you'd have to put him on the A list, wouldn't you? I think
exactly. Yeah, you'd have two. It needs to be 2 years to be on the B list, so I don't think he'd be available anyway. We spoke, didn't we, in the summer? Janai Byfield, the young 16-year-old centre-back who's very highly rated. He played in the behind-closed-doors friendly against Cambridge right at the start of the summer. You never know. They might decide to give him a little bit of a reward with some game time. But yeah, anyone, there's probably a couple I've forgotten as well, but there's a lot of options there to kind of flesh out that bench with and potentially give some minutes to some of them. But, I mean, which ones would you like to see out of that list in particular?
Well, certainly Mikey Moore and Will Lancashire on the list.
Yeah.
And everyone probably wants to see a bit more of Tyrese Hall. Then the same goes for probably Alfie Dorrington as well, because he's just been really unlucky with injuries in recent months. And then Max Robson as well, because he's on the A list, isn't he? Is he? No, in the Premier League, I think he's on the main list there. I thought he did well against Hearts when he came on. He's been in and around the first team in training at times previously. So yeah, I'd probably go for those 5 personally, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, you don't have to name 12 substitutes, do you?
You don't, but it would be a bit daft not to give a young kid a bit of experience, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think I'd rather go with 5 youngsters on the bench rather than 3 or 4 sub goalkeepers, because that'd just be ridiculous. But we'll wait and see what happens. In terms of the team, I wouldn't make that many changes, maybe just a couple here and there. Just having a look at Qarabağ's results last year in the Europa League. Don't underestimate them. Again,
no,
they got into the knockout phase, won 4-2 away at Braga, 6-5 on aggregate. And then they were minutes away from knocking out Bayer Leverkusen in the round of 16. 2-2 in the first leg. Then they were winning 2-1 going into stoppage time in Germany. Patrick Schick scoring 93rd minute and 97th minute winner. That's Leverkusen, just typical of them, scoring those late goals that helped them on the way to the Bundesliga title last year. So Qarabağ are going to arrive at Spurs looking to make a big impact and, give Spurs a bit of a scare. So I think for me, you just go as strong as possible, few changes here and there. And then if you can get into a decent lead, then make a few changes here and there.
Yeah, I just very quickly want to say, I was just having a little doubt in myself there, and I've just checked the rules. I don't think Max Robson's actually able to be on the B list. I think you have to be born on or after 1st of January 2003.
Right. Okay.
And was born 17th of October 2002. So I don't I think he had to be on that A list. Yeah. Which is, then why wasn't he put on there as a club trained player in one of the 2 spots?
Because then would you have to lose someone else from the squad?
No, because that was one of the 2 spots.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. I just kind of feel like I've stumbled across something there that there's actually no sense in. I might have to do a little digging around about that. But in terms of the team itself, I think it's probably, as much as it might upset people, I don't think it would as much this time, but I think it will probably be quite similar to the Coventry team. I think you would imagine it's going to be a bulk of those players will play again. It's a funny one because obviously it is that gap from Sunday to Thursday. It's a kind of a bigger gap, and it does allow you to use a couple of stronger players if you want, but also you're going to be very wary that instead the gap is quite quick between that and the United game. So I would probably personally I'd go for a similar one. Maybe not you. I don't know, would you use a doggy or not? Maybe use it's a really difficult one. I was going to say maybe you let Porro play this one rather than a doggy, but then you're having to probably play Archie Gray as a centre back then, aren't you? Because Ben Davies got to switch to the left. Honestly, this not having a centre back or a left-sided player is so much more of an issue than I think they've kind of taken into account it is. And this is without any injuries in that department as well. Yeah, I'd probably do that. Sarr and Burival have to come in, definitely. Then it's between Basuma and Bentancur. And up front, I would go Werner and Moore either side of probably Solanke. Maybe it depends on where Will Lancashire is fitness-wise in terms of whether you either give him the second half or you give Sonny the second half or bring Lancashire on later on as it goes on and Sonny goes back to the left, maybe. I don't know. But there's a lot of changes he can make, definitely.
Yeah. We'll be back. I think it'll be early next week now to reflect on the Karabag game, unless you end up fitting one in Friday morning with Wilma.
It might be a little bit tight because of the press conference on Friday, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah, but next week, I mean, there's going to be plenty to discuss. We'll be reflecting on the Karabag game, Manchester United on the Sunday, and then your first European away game of the season, Ferencvaros. So big week coming up for Spurs. Plenty of football on the agenda, and that's exactly how we want it to be after no European football at all last season. So in the meantime, keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/Gold Guest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.